Good evening, everyone, and how are you doing this evening? I hope you are well on this beautiful Monday afternoon. Well, we are coming in from Toronto and it is Monday. Welcome to the Victory Speak Show, Inspire Conversation series where iron sharpens iron. That's you and me sharpening each other. And of course, we got to start with a little Caribbean jazz by Calabash. And we're so grateful for them that we can play their music on the Victory Speak Show. This song is called From Whence We Came. So loving it here. And now this is your time to share. Remember, sharing is caring. So sit back, get something warm to drink, share the link, share the link, share the link. And for those of you who don't know me, I am your host, Nicole Waldron, your voice of victory and your mental fitness coach. And I'm on a mission to inspire you to live a life of victory, a victorious lifestyle. You see, we all need to cultivate that victory mindset as we mind our minds. We have many, many conversations all the time, good, bad, funny, you name it, we have it. And I know if I've had it. And some of these inspiring conversations that I've had are with people doing amazing work. And wanted to share them with you. I believe we all have a story to tell, and there's always someone that can glean from your story. And I always say it, sharing is caring. Tonight, I am so deeply honored to have my extended family from Stella's Place Family Advisory Council here with us tonight. Stella's Place is making such a difference in the lives of young people addressing their mental health along with their families. So I'm going to introduce you to them and then I'm going to bring them up onto the Victory Speak stage. Lori McBurney was a securities lawyer before deciding to end her practice to become a stay-at-home mom to her children. Lori has been involved in mental health and addiction issues for many years, having multiplied her family members who've been afflicted with such issues, including Lori herself. Martha McGroarty has been a supporter of Stella's Place since 2017 and holds annual community outreach fundraising events. As a suicide loss survivor, she shares her experiences with our mental health system. She is also a volunteer as a crisis responder for the Kids Help text line. John Swain is semi-retired, offering his expertise and lived experiences as a member of Stella's Place Family Advisory Council. In this capacity, he has been a co-developer and facilitator of Stella's Place Family to Family workshop focused on assisting adult family caregivers who support young adults with mental health conditions. Also joining us tonight is George Iyer. He is the father of three young men. He's a professional engineer with over 30 years experience in R&D, product development, and manufacturing. As a volunteer with Stella's Place Family Advisory Council, he's an advocate for young adult mental health and a champion of the methods that have and continue to develop at Stella's Place. And Asante Haughton is a mental health advocate devoted to changing the world. He is focused on amplifying the stories of everyday people to illuminate gaps in the system while working to build bridges between community members and policymakers in order to find solutions to challenges together. Asante is the co-founder of the Reach Out Network Response Unit, an organization advocating for non-police led mobile crisis emergency response. He designs, manages, and facilitates peer support training programs at Stella's Place. Okay, folks, get ready with your emojis. Tell me where they at because listen, I'm gonna bring them up the stage. I'm gonna bring them up to the stage. We got John, we got Martha, we got Lori, we got Asante, and I know George is having some technical issues. And so welcome, 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 everybody. How you doing? Can
Thanks,
you hear me?
Nicole.
Good.
Great,
So good
Nicole.
to see you folks. Good, good, good. And I know John is out in the far and deep in the woods. We may have a little bit of delay, but that's okay. So be sure to tell me where you guys are listening from, live and on the replay. And there I see Vivian Cape is drinking her hot tea and relaxing. We're ready to sit back and have this conversation. If you're on YouTube, drop your questions in the chat or on Facebook Live. Okay, so let's get this conversation started. It's going to be a lot of deep conversation tonight. So, Asante, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us what is Stella's Place and what makes it different from any other mental health youth service?
I was muted. My
You were
bad.
muted.
Representing Stella's Place, right? Anyway, so Stella's Place, we're a youth mental health organization in downtown Toronto, serving young people aged 16 to 29, and we're a service hub, which is to say that we offer a lot of things in the same place. And what really makes us special is that we try our hardest. Oh, look, I just got the Zoom. We try our hardest to be low barrier, and what that means for us is certain things like all of our programming is 100% free. So there is nothing that is offered at Stella's Place that we expect anyone who uses Stella's Place services to pay for. So that's the first thing. But beyond that, our values are really centered in such a way where they put people first. It's really about community. It's really about the experience of the person using the service and not just what they're getting from us. So I think those things really highlight what is so different about Stella's Place and why young people just can't get enough of us.
Thank you so much. And so, with the pandemic and knowing the unique programming that you do at Stella's Place, how has the pandemic affected you and your delivery of service?
Well, I'm really proud of Stella's Place in terms of how we've been able to respond in the pandemic. I still remember March 16th, 2020, when, that was a day where we all stopped going to work. And, by the next week, virtually all of our programming was online. So
Wow.
we didn't hesitate. We were like, okay, hey, we got hundreds of young people that we're taking care of. We have a job to do here. So we have to do it. So we figured it out. So yeah, of course, there is some impact in terms of
Yeah.
um, how we offer the services, or then you look at service users and their ability to access. Do they have high speed internet? Do they have private places at home they can speak vulnerably? Et cetera, et cetera. And those are challenges that to some extent still exist, but we've tried our best on our end to mitigate those challenges as much as possible while also being able to still provide service groups, one-on-one counseling, beanbag chat, you name it.
Wait, beanbag chat. That sounds so intriguing. What is a beanbag chat?
So beanbag chat is our texting service. So essentially young people can log on to the app and anonymously talk to a counselor navigator, and to get support at a time where they might need it.
Oh, that is so creative. And I'm seeing the love coming in here. Dagmar is online, sending
Yeah.
virtual hugs. Good evening, Destiny. Welcome to the show. Be sure to let us know how you're feeling and if any questions that you have. So, what are some of the key or significant mental issues that you're seeing coming out with young people right now, especially in light of the pandemic?
um you know it's really hard for young people right now, and I think about it as I'm still kind of young, but I went through a lot of the like youth developmental stages already. But
Right.
then you think about someone who's 17, 18, 19, 22, 24 years old. That's a very formative and transformative time period for most of us, and that's a time period where we're finding ourselves and we're trying new things, and we're engaging in a lot of different parts of ourselves, and also engaging with a lot of other people and connecting and building lifelong friendships and relationships, sometimes things that lead to marriage and things of this nature. And the pandemic has really taken a lot of that away from young people. And I often don't think about just what's happening right now, but what's the rebound effect going to be
Right.
when 5 or 10 years down the road, all these young people and kids who went through this sit back and they go, hey, I just lost 2 3 however many years of my development, and I'm not getting those years back.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of that, and the lack of connection really, and the uncertainty of it, just not knowing when it's going to end and when things will be okay again, is creating a lot of anxiety for folks as well.
Yeah, yeah. And just everybody who's joining us now, and I see some of the folks coming in on the chat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And those of you who are live and on the replay, let us know where you're tuning in from. I got my extended family here. Some of you are getting to see them for the very first time from Stella's Place. It's amazing, family. You just get family it is not always blood related. It's just something that brings you together. Community can bring you together as family. And so you're meeting John, Martha, Asante, George, and Lori, and some of the extended family is missing tonight because we can't fit them all in one. And so I want to go to my extended family. And George, I know you're. Thank you for getting in, and you're looking good. You're looking good, George. Tell us why you got involved with Stella's Place, and maybe a little bit about your story.
Sure. Sorry for being late. Got tied up a little bit. And yeah, the one of the categories that we look for in a family advisory council member is lived experience with being a caregiver in particular of a young adult. So I'm no different. I have three boys. They're in the twins are 24 and the youngest is 21. And certainly in their teen and young adult years, the twin boys have had a lot of challenges, and so starting at a young age, around 13, various stages of difficulty in school, engagement with various types of drugs, some street involvement as time wore on, some police involvement as time wore on. Certainly we worked hard to get them various forms of counseling and try to reach them, and had a lot of difficulty with that. Came to Stella's Place through a friend who my one son was actually couch surfing with his family at the time, and she had been introduced to Stella's Place, so she said check it out. So I went down to a introductory meeting that was for kind of an open house for families, and actually John Swain was talking about his experience and his son's experience at Stella's. And that was pre-pandemic, and really the cafe situation and just meeting all of the people that were there. It was such a different environment from the doctor's offices and the emergency rooms and the police stations and even CAMH at the time, and various places that was like, wow, this feels really unique and special. And if I could get, because one of the big challenges we were having with our boys at the time, and to a certain extent continue to have, at least especially with one of them, is really getting them to engage in their own mental health journey and begin to take, they're older now, and they need to begin to take some personal activity and advocacy for their own journey in mental health. So Stellas just gave me the feeling that if there was an opportunity for anybody that was feeling intimidated by those other environments, Stellas was just that, as we talk about, low barrier to entry, where casual, you can walk in, there's no judgment, there's no pressure, there's no prescribed regimen that you must do this and you must do that. There's no 6-month waiting list. There's all of that stuff was pretty much not there, which was like, oh my gosh. So then the opportunity to join Stella's Family Advisory Council popped up, and I jumped at it and threw my hat in the ring, and I was very, very fortunate to get the chance to join. And as you mentioned, you kind of find a new family, and we've really created a great group of folks that are supporting each other, supporting Stella's Place. Learning, you're always continuing to learn. I learned so much from each of the family advisory council members, and I learned so much from each of the different sessions that we get engaged to and introduced to. I mean, unfortunately, I feel sometimes that I really wish that I had this opportunity to learn this stuff 10 years ago, when when I maybe had a better chance, but who knows? I don't have a backwards crystal ball to say, this would have worked or wouldn't have worked. But certainly, and these are one of the things that John and Victoria, who is another member, have put together, is this really wonderful introductory caregivers primer session that just starts to introduce you to where to look and who to go to and where can you talk and what are the things that you can be doing.
Which is something we so need as families, the information navigating the system. You're so right. I so wished that so many of us knew about Stella's Place long before. And I'm glad Stella's Place is expanding because the capacity is going to be needed. We're going to need some more staff to join Asante and the team, and Alex and Dagma and Donna, and we have a new ED being announced today. So it's so exciting,
Yeah.
what's happening at Stella's Place. And George, I have learned so much from you, and I
Thank
admire
you.
you and what you have you're doing with your family. And you mentioned our workshops, which brings me to John. And so, John, what brought you to Stella's Place?
Well, let me start the story by pre-Stella's Place because my son, our son, is now 37 years old. So he's out of the sort of we'll say the treatment window that Stella's Place focus on, which is 16 to 29. As Asante said, that focus in those formative years is absolutely critical. Um, but when I have to say, when he was about 13 and going through all sorts of things at school, I didn't know. I was forecasting in 5 years if he was going to be dead, if he was going to be in jail, or he was going to be. I didn't know. I mean, just that's the challenge we were having. Fortunately, we found a doctor who he did get diagnosed early um, with a mental health condition, which was primarily at that time it looked like it was kind of bipolar ADHD, and that's why he was having so much trouble at school. And he was really prone to self-medicating with weed as well to
Mm,
control his anxiety, etc. And so I won't bore you with all the details because there's 25 years between that and today. But over those 25 years, we've been up and down and back and forth to all sorts of things and different things we've tried. I think my wife and I have been diligent in terms of not judging him for all of this stuff that was happening as some personality or character flaw. We knew
that's
there was
big.
something
That's
like
big.
a brain disease, basically, which mental
Yes.
health is. And so
Yes.
we could be supportive of him. Not that we didn't have our fights and our battles and things like that, but and he's been to hell and back several times in his own experience. I can't imagine what it's like or what it was like for him to get through a day, get through a week, given the madness that was going on in his brain and his life. And so there was a period of time he was addicted to opiates for about 4 or 5 years. He sort of was functional,
Mhm.
could never really get through on we'll say the traditional school system. We tried some different support programs, etc. But the thing that really worked, and I'm fast forwarding to my point here. Um, uh, Nicole mentioned I'm a semi-retired management consultant, which I have been for 35 years. I'm still doing some consulting work professionally, but I had a business partner back along the way who actually had a son like my son, who was having a lot of challenges of navigating the mental health support system. Because once you get out
Right.
of the 18 years old, it's just not there's tons of well-intentioned people, but it's very uncoordinated. It's waiting lists or costs money, et cetera, all those challenges. And she and Donna Green decided that because they'd had it with all of this, they decided they were going to start a program that would work for young adults, and that was the genesis of Stella's Place. And so I'd heard about it through my business partner because I was good friends with her as well, and I'd heard about her son, and
Right.
we'd share stories about our son and her son. And so this goes back to even when got involved. And for the first time in his life, he was going to a community where he was understood because he was so misunderstood in all
Mm,
the other more traditional settings. And so it was a real struggle for him. And so he got involved, and he was I think, one of the first members, one of the first group of young adults who were part of the Youth Advisory Council started to advise. And he was just pumped with his ideas of what could happen, and also the fact he was with peers who were like him. So he was so well accepted and loved. And that stabilized him, for sure, stabilized him. Now he has since grown beyond the the age range where there's the support
Yeah.
there. But had he not had that, I'm not sure where he would be right now. And yeah, he still struggles with anxiety and
Hmm.
schizoaffective disorder, and I can name all the other things, right? That's cocktail mental health disorders.
Right.
And we're just helping him navigate his way. And so that's what got me involved in Stella's Place. Because I just want to, I won't echo what George just said, just to get involved as a family advisory council meeting with tons of lived experience with and working with
Yeah.
some great other Martha, Lori, Victoria, just and you yourself, Nicole, phenomenal folks who are just doing phenomenal work in the field of helping caregivers with their loved ones.
You know what is interesting, even just from just you and George right now, is to hear that even though your loved ones are older, you're still involved in Stella's Place. And that shows the impact and the significance of it and the uniqueness of it. And Emily from How She Hustles says, very important conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much, Emily, for saying that. And uh, and we're going to come back to some of the programming and how you can even be involved and get to know more about Stella's Place in a bit as we share the stories. And it is such this is such a special night for me, and I know for those of you who know me, I'm the girl that cries, right? I am the girl that cries, and I am emotional because of the people on this show tonight and their stories. And it's not even just resilience, but just their love. John used the word unconditional, and it is something that is so important in the journey with mental health and wellness and our young people. And the judgment that comes whether you're older or younger, and being able to recognize that it's a brain disease and it's not a thought disease, it's a brain disease. So I'm really glad that we're touching on that. And Lori, I want to go to you, beloved, and if you can tell us, you're such a giant in this world and doing so many great things. And you're one that Lori chairs our FAC. And yeah, I'm hugging you right now. So Lori, if
Okay.
you can tell us why you joined Stella's Place and became involved, and maybe even a little bit of your story that you're able to share with us tonight.
Sure. I come from a family of long history of addiction and mental health. My father, my grandmother, aunts, uncles, myself. And then when I had children that are adopted, so it's not all just genetic, my children experienced some problems as well. And like some of the other stories, my girls, I have 3 girls, they started demonstrating problems very young, about 12, 13 years old. And it was on a severe level. And we had to deal with one particular child where we were in the States. And she was in the States for about 5 months. And because she was so young, it necessitated me going every weekend.
Wow.
So it was really a 4-day trip to see her for 2 hours. And I was separated from my husband. Thankfully, I was sober.
Hmm.
But I was separated from my husband. It was extremely hard because the other children had their own issues, and not being able to be there made it extremely difficult. My girls also have a seizure disorder, which made it even worse because in Canada, I couldn't get help anywhere. So everything was done in the States. And then what happened after being there for such an extended period of time and giving up your entire life, you have
Hmm.
no choice. You give up your life. Your friends are gone. All of your contacts are gone. And when you come home, there's no support for these children at all because we don't have these type of programs in Canada. And the programs that we have in Canada are made for adults that they attempt to apply for children. And the only program I could get in for my daughter at that particular time was for an eating disorder clinic because she was so young. But what happened after years and years of working and a lot of therapy for everybody, my kids have had some very successful treatment and are doing quite well. And what I wanted to do was to give back because my kids did find a road to recovery. And so I was introduced to Stella's Place, and I went there as a volunteer to donate. But then when I was talking to Donna, who is one of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life,
Yes, she is.
who's the founder, she was doing absolutely everything that I wanted to do for if I was going to start something like this of my own. But I talked to her about the Family Advisory Committee because I said that the value parents have in parents or anyone who has a relationship with a young adult that is involved to talk to other parents or to provide the information that we have to other people is such valuable information. It's so valuable because what we sometimes provide is nothing more than hope, because there's some days where you just you want to give up. And what
Yes.
the Family Advisor Committee also does is it teaches us to take care of, as the caregivers, we have to take care of ourselves, because if
Hmm.
we don't, we're going to burn out. And this is a lifelong commitment. No matter how, if you have a child with an issue, it's a lifelong commitment. And one of the things that I have learned in this process was that I've listened to everyone talking about, oh, addiction and mental health, it's a family disease, it's this and that. And I think that's one of the worst characterizations that you can give, because it's saying that your whole family is at fault and that there's
Yes.
something wrong with your family or the way that your family is organized. And that's not true in my opinion. My opinion is that at some point in time you have found that you have a special needs child
Hmm.
or a young adult, and what you're learning is how to cope. That's what you're learning. You're learning how to cope and mechanisms for like to get along and learn how to adapt to the situation, rather than we all react to it at first with anger and fear, and it's not the way to get results. So if you can learn to accept that, people say, oh, it's not the child that I had, 10 years ago or whatever. That was a child. That's not who
Yeah.
this kid is. They
Yes.
are
Yes.
growing, and allow them to grow. Allow them to find the help that they need in a format that's delivered, that they're willing to participate. Because if they're not, we're just spinning our wheels.
Right.
So
Right.
it is a lifetime commitment of mine to see that young adults will get free mental health services in this province for as long as I am on this earth.
I love that. And one of the things I say that we definitely need is, as soon as you have a loved one diagnosed with a mental illness, we should immediately have supports for family caregivers.
Absolutely.
We have so much counseling for those with cancer, with heart disease, but for some reason, caregivers of loved ones with a mental illness, I don't even, whether it's a young person, it's an older person with schizophrenia or Alzheimer's or whatever the illness is, we seem to forget there is a need, and it's when it says the invisible disease, I think it's also invisible for caregivers. The caregivers become invisible as well, and having to find that space, people not even knowing what to say. I remember going to a conference once and for mental health, and one person in the group said, "Have you gotten a casserole yet?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" Nobody brings the casserole. The loved one is hospitalized, and or they don't realize that the mental stress that caregivers go through, and so it's a very different journey, and the supports that we need. Go ahead, Lori.
I was going to say the one thing we all have to understand is that there is no shame in having a mental health issue. There is no shame in having a child or a young adult in your family or anyone who has this issue. Because if you live with shame, you will never understand this issue, because it is part of our everyday life. There is no chance that we do not know someone at this time that is a young adult that is in trouble. We all do.
Especially now, we're in an opioid crisis. We're dealing with the pandemic. We're dealing with kids who've been isolated for so long, some in school, some not out of school. And when I talk to people in the education system, and I see one of my good friends here, Wendy, who works in the schools, and when you hear some of the stories, and I have other friends, our kids are in crisis, and a lot of parents don't know what to do because they've never been faced with it. And um, and I think one of the conversations we may have to come back and have is how do we, really recognize the different type. We can probably touch on some of it tonight, when it's not just a behavioral problem, right? It's an illness, it's an issue that you may have to look deeper into. What
Mhm.
are the signs we may need to look for? And Asante, we'll come to you with some of that too, like some of the signs, and any of you can jump in at that point. But before we go to that point, I have the beautiful Martha on here, she is another giant in this group, and I don't know where you get your energy. I don't know. I don't even know, Martha. You just amaze me all the time. So, Martha, why did you get involved? And if you can tell your story, and your story is a very personal, deep story.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for that huge compliment. Very flattering. Thanks. So I it goes before I was introduced to Stella's place, of course. So my daughter was 16, going on 17, when she started showing the symptoms of mental illness. And at first, you know, thought it was teenage rebellion, angst,
Mhm.
um, and then very soon, realized that it was emotional, and she was just overwhelmed and with her emotions, and which was not not common for her. So when that started happening, we tried to figure out what was going on. So the first thing was to see a psychiatrist at St. Mike's, and get diagnosed, which I guess um, anxiety, depression, and emotional dysregulation, which is labeled as borderline personality disorder. And he the recommendation was that she get into the dialectical behavior therapy. So we were told, though, that the wait list for that would be over a year if it was through the public system. And
Right.
he suggested going to a private clinic if it was affordable. Um, I don't know about affordable, but we did that.
Right.
And it she waited still about 3 months to get into that program, and it was about $1,200 a month. So
Wow.
it was expensive, and it was. I'm not going to say it wasn't worth it, because of course you'll pay anything to,
For your children.
yeah, it's devastating to see your child hurting and
Mhm.
struggling,
Mhm.
and you just want to find the solution. And I think that's, one thing that you do learn, that there isn't a solution that's going to fix everything. It's an ongoing, like I think Lori mentioned, just learning to manage, learning to cope, getting over that who your child was and who you thought they were going to grow up to be.
Mhm.
You kind of have to let go of that and focus on just making sure that they're going to be okay and
Exactly.
manage, and be happy as much as possible, what you can expect. So yeah, we went through that private program, and actually part of it was that there was a group for parents. So if your child was in the program, as a parent, you would join this group, and that was extremely helpful. It we were taught what they were learning in what the kids were learning, or the young adults were learning in dialectical behavior therapy, which just helped so much with communicating with a loved one, with anybody really, but really with a loved one struggling with mental illness, and learning how not to judge and just think that you know it's easy.
Yeah.
Really understanding how difficult it is for the person with the mental illness what they're going through daily. So that was helpful. Brianna, that, like I said, that wasn't the solution for her. That wasn't going to fix her problems. So she managed to, throughout all that, graduate from high school, which was, very proud of her. But again, with the mental health issues, came the substance use and the escape and trying to escape. And I guess throughout those years, trying to find help for her, it was really difficult because the waiting lists, unless, and just trying different things. So she went through one program, then trying to find other things for her. And when there were a few times when she was brought to the hospital in crisis, and she was sent home without any resources, without follow-up appointments. Wow. It was just the quick fix of, here, let's give you this medication to calm you down for now, and then you're okay now, you can go home. So I think that was a huge struggle and obstacle for her, just kind of being left to figure out where to go and what to do. And so then, and she knew what she needed. She knew what she wanted. She knew that she wanted to create her own wellness journey. And she knew, so pretty much everything that she had told me that she was looking for, I heard about Stella's Place on CBC. I think it was, I read an article, and this is it. This is the place. This is exactly what she has been saying that she wants, that she would find helpful. We found Stella's Place just too late for her, and she died by suicide in 2017. And it was at her funeral. It was actually my husband suggested, in lieu of flowers, donate to Stella's Place, which was an amazing idea. And that connected us with Dagmar. And Dagmar just was so kind and warm and engaging, and that's how our relationship with Stella's Place started, really, and just grew from there. I knew that I wanted to do everything possible to help young adults, help families struggling, and just so that they had hope, and that they, I didn't want anyone to feel the way we felt and lose a child, Yeah. So I think that's what continues to motivate me. And yeah.
Go ahead, Martha.
No, just and then being involved in the Family Advisory Council, and just being able to, I guess, be around people with similar experiences with their loved ones, and just learning from them and giving back, like Lori said, it really means a lot.
Well, first off, Martha, thank you for sharing your story. I know that's not always easy for you to share, and it is hard to hear that so many times you went to the hospital and your daughter wanted the help, and they could see that she was in need, and she was basically turned away. Do you find that problem was so consistent? What would you say to families now, since being through that journey? What would you say to families now when they're advocating for their young ones?
I think that's key, advocating. I don't think I had learned that quick enough, because I trusted the system, and I was I didn't know what to do. It was new to us.
Right.
And I relied on reaching out for help, that I thought that was enough. I thought, I guess I thought that was enough. And so I just, I wish I was a little more vocal. I wish I was, not a little more.
Right.
I wish I was a lot more vocal, and not just walked away kind of dumbfounded and and wondering, what should I do? You know,
Mhm.
I think that's the key, is advocating. I knew in my heart and soul what she needed and what was necessary, and that's what we should have got.
Yeah.
And that's what and I see a lot has changed. This
Right.
was 4 years ago. A lot has changed positively. So there obviously more people are speaking about mental health and how important it is, and the stigma is somewhat reducing, and so definitely, but also just I think the getting and staying involved with other parents who are struggling, like joining a group for yourself, because I did feel very alone. And I have family and friends that are 100% supportive and loving and caring. And however, if you're, and that's what you need, but also when someone has experience with what you're going through exactly or similarly, that's very important, because
And,
you could bounce ideas off each other.
yep.
You kind of you have that deep understanding of how you're really feeling.
Can I
Martha,
say
you brought up
something?
a few good points there, because one of the key things, and I know I feel, Lori, I can feel you, Lori, is that is the advocacy piece, and not feeling guilty as a family member, because we trust the system, we believe in the system, and we think that the system is going to work, and we trust the doctors. And I think this is a very important part of the conversation. I can see everybody shifting in their chairs; they're ready to chime in,
Mhm.
because this is the part here. This is the crux of the matter: families being involved, families being able to advocate. So, Lori, I'm going to go to you, Lori, then I'm going to go to John and Asante, and then George. So, Lori, you go.
I think that in my case, I had a little bit of an ability to fight more and be more vocal because my children had a health problem at the same time. And because of
Mm,
that health problem combined with all the other issues, it meant that they brought it to a higher level. Not that the care was any better, don't get me wrong, but it allowed me to be much more vocal. For example, in the States, I demanded they keep my daughter because I said if she went home, she would not live.
wow.
And because in the States, they take control of your daughter at 18 until she's 18. So the thing is that it's not up to the parent to when they leave. So long as you're paying the bills, it's not up to the parent. It's up to them.
Wow.
So it's a different system. And I'm not, and again, the problem is most people can't afford that, first of all.
Hmm.
But it's also a system that at a certain point, like people that are insurance, that's cut off and things like that. And it's not available in Canada. It's just not
Right.
available. So
Right.
I found that why I feel the Family Advisory Committee, going back to that, is so important is that um, we as caregivers become very, very isolated. And because no one wants to hear about our problems anymore, no one wants to hear about our spoiled kids because, of course, they have to be spoiled. There's all these assumptions that go in with a child that has or a young adult that has a problem, and so we become very, very quiet. We lose a
Yes.
lot of our friends. We lose a lot of our contacts, and we don't want to talk about our problems anymore because we know the reaction. That should not be the case.
Because you're not
We
feeling like a
need
burden.
people, we need people to talk to that are in the same situation. Because if you just get one person to give you a little different direction or a little bit of way to think differently, even if it's just for one day, that's what you need to keep moving on. Because there's days that you don't want to get up, you don't want to engage,
Yes.
you don't want to try, and we need that help.
Yes.
You
And we
need
Well,
help
totally,
to ensure that you stay up.
I
yes.
think it's the case too that when you're seeing your children struggling, it affects you, and it's
Absolutely.
traumatizing. As
We
when
become
you're
milk.
going, yeah, it's really, you're taking care of them. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of them. You need to take some time for yourself, but you
Yep.
feel guilty doing that, or you just can't because they need your 100% care. But it is traumatizing. So you have to learn how to take care of your trauma,
Right.
seeing
And
them go through their trauma.
and
Exactly.
John always talks about that. John always talks about the self care piece. And John, I know you wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Well, I want to build on these great points, particularly the advocacy piece, and just don't give your young adult over to the system. Notwithstanding, it's full of well-intentioned people, well-trained people. However, um, if you really are paying attention to your loved one, you can help with even the simple things of the chemistry they might have with a particular support person. Now, we were fortunate to find Devin has had the same psychiatrist for 25 years. He's been a pillar in his life,
Wow.
and he is so personally committed to our son. And in the webinar that Victoria and I do, and others, we talk about knowing your village, but knowing who it is does take a village, as Lori has mentioned, and Martha. It takes a village. You can't not do it on your own. And so you need to be, number one, get over yourself in terms of any shame or guilt you have about your child and
Mm,
how they may appear to others. Forget that. Are you there for them or not, right? And so, and I don't mean to give your life completely over, because that then you become a doormat to that condition as well. But they
right.
need to know that you are fully and functionally with them, that you believe in them. The moment you don't believe in them, then they have a real challenge, a real added challenge. And then the advocate could play a number of roles. Is helping them even fill out an application. I think I mentioned this to somebody the other day. I have sometimes called somebody as if I was my son so I could get an appointment, because there's no way he was going to be able to do that because of his mental state. I've actually filled out forms as if I was him in order to get him to keep playing in the game, so
Yes.
that he could at least get to school, or do whatever. So maybe that's going overboard, and people may judge me on that, but it's gotten him over certain humps where okay, now he's into the next stage, and he's on to something, right? I guess the
Because
point
sometimes they
I'm
need a
making
jump start.
is
Sometimes they need a jump start. Yeah.
absolutely. And so um, and then I think it's one of the role being the advocate is really getting involved and actually changing practice. If something's not working with a particular therapist, change it. You don't have to
Yes.
keep going that something is not working. Help change it, help facilitate the change in collaboration with your loved one. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I'll just be have things to say. I feel
I
really
love that,
strongly
John.
about this.
Yeah. And I know you've always been very strong to us about self-care and making sure and taking the time for care. And Asante, when you think about families and the system and getting involved, and you have been not just at Stella's Place, but at the Reach Out Response Network, you have been advocating for how, families, when they need to reach out for help for their loved ones in crisis, not having to call the police. Like, tell us about a little bit about some of what you're doing and why is that necessary, especially with families getting involved as well.
Well, Lori said something earlier about families being treated like the enemy, and a lot of the assumptions that are made about families, that there has to be something wrong with them, and that's the
Hmm.
issue. Um, it's not the case. I mean, maybe there are some cases where that is the case, but a lot of times it's really not. And realistically, parents are really just like fighting for their children's lives, or other family members if it's not the parent, right? And oftentimes, I find that there is this attitude in the system that they're all knowing, and that any
Hmm.
feedback or just wish to be involved is seen as a threat to their knowledge and their authority as professionals. And I think what needs to happen is, rather than having that approach, is for professionals who are, supposed to be out there to help, children and families, is to see the family as a resource, because families will give you the history. Families will give you all
Yes.
the things that worked and
Yep.
didn't work. Families will give you, what happened with, the friend group 2 years ago. Families will give you all of these things, and there's just so much information that families can provide that would be a huge benefit when working in collaboration with the professional caregiver that I find is just often missing from the conversation because families are seen as either not qualified enough because they didn't go through years and years of school,
Mm-hmm.
or but they've gone through years and years of parenting their kid, or just that they are the problem. And
Yeah.
for me, I find this to be hugely problematic. And uh, you know, I can't imagine what it feels like as a parent to be turned away from being a part of your children's care when you've been a part of their care since before they even came out of the womb, right? So,
That is
parents,
so
and
well said.
one thing I learned,
So well said.
you, one thing I learned as an adult, Nicole, and this is like not necessarily about this conversation, but it is about this conversation, is that when I was a kid, elementary school, high school, there were so many things I thought that my mom didn't know about me, and things that I thought she wasn't seeing and ignoring, all of these things, right? The things that essentially, parents pick their battles too. And then I got to adulthood, and we had these frank conversations, and she knew every lie I was telling, everything she knew all of it, right? Parents they're
Absolutely.
engaged. So if we're not using them as a resource, we're actually not doing the best job that we can do.
Can I say
That is
one
so
thing?
true.
Can I say one
Yes,
thing?
you can totally. And I'm going to say this. Wendy's saying you're also informative. So I'm just going to give you some of your flowers now that 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 their conversation is really being appreciated. Go ahead, Lori.
The one thing I would say that I have learned through this process is that as parents or caregivers, we need to learn a different language when we're talking
Mm,
to our
mm,
kids or to our people that we're worried about, because we tend to deal with them in certain classified ways. One is the mother who's the helicopter, who's like, going around and like, not giving that kid a chance to do anything on their own because they're so worried. And then you have the other people that want to be just sort of like stand off and not be involved, or the
mm.
screamers or whatever. We need to learn to talk to our children like they are respected individuals. We need to learn to, rather than picking on every mistake they make, we find the pearls that they have of the day
Come
and
on
we
now, Lori.
reward them. And we talk about it, because the thing is that if you want to help your young adult, this is a collaborative. It is a
Hmm.
collaborative relationship, because if you think as the caregiver, you are going to dictate how a recovery program is going to go for your young adult, you are wrong. You are
Mm.
wasting your time. Get rid of your pride, get rid of your need to be in control, and accept this is something that you will work together for the rest of your lives. It's
Good
That
not a
point.
one
right
fix
there is
thing.
golden. That is
Yeah.
that is golden. And you have to come. There's a place of humility that you have to come to. And was it you, George? I can't remember who it was at this point in time, but who said, you have to get rid of the thought of the idea of the child that you have to what you have now. And it's the same with any illness. We don't do it with anything else. As I keep always referring to cancer or heart disease, or if they have any other illness, we make the change, and for some reason there's this judgment that we have to move away from. And George, you said it so rightly, and we have to remember, this is a brain it was John, this is a brain disease, and it's the brain that is affecting the mind, which affects everything else, whether it's addiction, whether it's bipolar, schizophrenia, concurrent disease. It's the brain, the chemicals in the brain that are not doing what it normally would do. And I think sometimes that would help with the stigma. Just before I move on to the next piece, George, was there anything you wanted to add to what we were just saying?
Yeah, maybe an hour's worth of discussion, but
We're gonna have to have part
Asante,
two, three, four, and five.
yeah, and Asante, you made a really good point about kind of that barrier to access, the feeling that the doors are shut for the adults, and Martha, you made some fantastic points as well, that you do need to find a group And you need so many things on so many levels to be an effective caregiver. And by no means am I claiming that I ever was one, because it's just so many facets, right? So you need your own emotional support. You need to learn a brand new language, like Lori said, that you probably weren't taught in your own upbringing, of learning how to listen, learning how to, what's the right word, invalidate, all those things. And then there's extremely technical stuff that I'm learning now, that as an evolving field of science and of medicine and legally, many of the professionals that you deal with, and I learned this at a seminar a couple weeks ago, actually don't know the current laws, and they
Come
don't
on,
apply
George.
them.
Bring it forward
Yeah,
now. Bring it
and
forward
it's,
now.
but it's tricky because you need that expertise, right? And to your point, Asante, I learned only 2 weeks ago, I wish I'd known this 12 years ago, that professionals are required by law to listen to you.
Say that
Right?
again, George. Say
They
that
are
again.
required by law to listen to you. They can't divulge stuff. They have privacy, but it's a duty of care for them to gather every piece of pertinent information about their patient. And if they won't take it, you have to, advocacy sometimes means you have to sit them down and say, just a second. I do have stories to tell that are really important about who my child is, and you need to know them in order to come up with an effective treatment plan.
And don't let them rush you.
And
Don't
if
let
they,
them rush you.
absolutely. So I didn't know that I had that right, because I was actually told that I didn't have that right. We can't listen to you. I was literally told that by professional psychiatrists and sociologists and psychologists, that I'm sorry, you're not part of this picture anymore, right? And there's literally, in the one seminar I was listening to, I'm waiting for the materials to circulate, actually, Nicole. They give you chapter and verse. No, it's this statute in the Canadian mental health laws.
I'm chasing it down too, George. I am chasing that sucker down right now as you speak. I've been chasing it down as soon as you said it, because you're so right. And I think this is a part of the conversation that is important for us, because I think we've all experienced this piece that you're touching on, the privacy piece. Sorry, I'm raising my voice because that's the part that just is like the privacy piece. And to me also, the privacy also brings the shame, like, why am I being so private about something that is normal? And I'm not, why we're not private about everything else. So why am I private about having to share that piece? And it seems that the system that has been so broken for so long cannot seem to release that whole old privacy piece, because of how we used to address mental health. And if we're going to, this is my belief, if we're going to deal with the stigma, we have to deal with the privacy piece, because how can it be private if you're going to help somebody and share what they need to do, and especially if you have somebody who goes into serious crisis. Sorry, George, I cut you off, because this is my pet peeve here.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure it's all our pet peeves when we have been barred, and we know families that have been barred from caring for their loved ones, and families who have not made it. And Martha has said it in her story, that not knowing. And when I think about what you said, Martha, I can't even imagine. Like, you must, I know, and I hope you don't even have any of the guilt, because you didn't know. And none of us, so many people, parents are not being equipped about what they can do in terms of advocacy, and releasing any guilt that, I should have done this, and I shouldn't have done this. But when you don't know, you don't know. And as George just said, even some of the medical people are saying you don't have the right to speak to us, but actually you do. But go
Right.
ahead, George. I cut you off because I'm just this is a show all by itself, privacy and consent.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, George? Oh, George, you're on mute. Hold on. I think you're on mute. You're busy
I think you're
talking.
on mute,
Talking to
George.
myself. Yeah. I'm back.
Come back, George.
No, from directly with both of my sons being in a situation of being formed, because they were out of control and a danger to themselves, and not being allowed to speak to the psychiatrist, who subsequently released them at 2:00 in the morning after they were, violent, and they had to be brought in both handcuffs and leg restraints by 3 large policemen, because they were high and they were thrashing around, and the idea that I was not allowed to tell the psychiatrist that it was unsafe for my child to come home today. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. You have the right to hold them for 72 hours for proper assessment, and I need you to do that. And I was told I wasn't allowed to do that. And I now find out that that's actually wrong. That if this were in the States, I might even be able to sue them for that kind of thing, because we have a very different system. And so those things, of course, are upsetting. But like you said, I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And to your point, Martha, you trust the system. You think these people have at least one university degree, if not 2 or 3, and they're probably a lot more knowledgeable in this area than I am. And it is quite disturbing to find out, in fact, many of them are not. And they are well-intentioned, but it is a tremendously rapid changing field to keep up with it on all of those fronts.
And so many of them are afraid. You mentioned something like they're well-intended, and you realize depending on where they're operating from, they're so afraid to break the rules. They're so afraid to get in trouble that they will take less information. And this is why it's so important for us to equip ourselves as caregivers. And I think, we definitely have to have a conversation with privacy and consent, because that's a whole piece by itself. And, I am sure, Asante, even you have to, in your work, having to deal with, trying to figure out in the both facets at Stella's place, and when you're even at dealing out with reach out at the response unit, dealing with privacy and consent and forming. And George, you mentioned forming, and a lot of people don't even understand when you may have to form your loved one and what that entails. And sometimes when you may have to call the police and when you don't. And I can't imagine that your loved one was, to no fault of their own, let's be very clear, because of the illness, acting in a violent way. And a hospital that is equipped and knows this stuff will actually release them. And, this thing we call imminent danger to themselves or imminent danger to others. Those are key words I hope people who are listening to this conversation can get, because I know this is so much, especially when it comes to your young one. I would encourage people to go and learn what a Form 1, what a Form 2 is, and involuntary and voluntary stuff. And, we have seminars that are coming up at Stella's place. What I want to do is I want to play a little video clip, and Asante, you might be able to speak to this one. I was sent this today, and it's by this young man. So I want to play this, and then we go to the next part of the show. For those of you who are joining us live and on the replay, you're at the Victory Speak show, and I have some of my extended family from Stella's place here with me: John, Martha, Lori, Asante, and George. And we're going to roll
Hello,
this.
my name is Khalil Deriva, and I am one of the peer mentors for the Community Healing Project. If I could describe CHP in 2 words, I would say game changer. They have literally transformed and changed my life. And the reason why I say that is because I grew up in a marginalized area, neighborhood, underserved, underprivileged, and I dealt with a lot of social anxiety growing up. And it came to the point where I went to depression. And I was scared to speak up and talk to people because I didn't want people to think I was crazy. And mental health is not talked about in school, not at home, and definitely not in the workplace. So what we're doing here is we are trying to make the uncool cool by changing the narrative and the perspective of how people look at mental health, by curating a safe space for people to have conversations, discussions, to express themselves, to have a voice, and really unpack the traumas that they have been dealing with. So we are doing God's work by helping people facilitate their own healing. So when you invest and you donate in a project like this and see a product of CHP like myself, you are saying that young people matter.
And I'm going to add one more piece here. And this is from
I'm
Stella's
so passionate about Stella's Place because it is everything that I needed when I was a young person.
The programming here, they're actually designed for them instead of prescribed to them.
The story is like so many other stories. And that's why Stella's Place is something that I'm so passionate about, because it's a place that is not just my place, but it's a place for everyone.
And so, that were 2 pieces there. And so Asante, you have a couple different projects happening at Stella's Place. If you could tell us just about a couple of those projects, and then we're going to go to you, John. We're going to talk about the workshops and stuff.
Yeah, the first video, that's my guy. That's Khalil. So we've been working together now on something called the Community Healing Project, and that's a project that works with young people from communities that experience a lot of community violence, and with community violence comes trauma. But oftentimes, that trauma is manifested in ways that make us blame the person rather than supporting them. So the project is really about interrupting that trauma cycle before it turns into maladaptive behavior that oftentimes leads people into just making bad life decisions. That's one thing. It's a huge program. It's by the city of Toronto. So shout out to City Hall for making sure this happens, and even our federal government for funding it. So big shout outs to them. But also the other thing, one of the other big things I'm working on now is helping to create peer support, communities of peer support on campuses, and we're doing that right now with the University of Toronto. We set up a program at U of T Mississauga last year, and we are looking to launch another one in the upcoming calendar year with the St. George campus, which is a much bigger campus and a whole different animal, but really ambitious effort. The folks there are super invested. Obviously, we're super invested. So just trying to do the best that we can to support students and really give them an extra resource, being themselves. Us training them, of course, to be peer supporters, but really wanting to create more resources for young people to access. One of the big things that I talk about all the time is access. Access looks like a lot of different things. Access looks like, do you have enough money for the service? Access looks like, is the service close to where I live? Access looks like, when I go to the service, is there someone there who can understand my cultural background or my story, or my gender identity or whatever it is? Access looks like so many different things, but it's important that we think about it and not just say, hey, we have practitioners, but what about all the things that could get in the way of young people accessing things? So with U of T, a big reason that we're going directly to the source is that the system is overloaded, and young people still need people to talk to. And one thing I always talk about is the power of community and how important community is when it comes to maintenance and healing and recovery, because ultimately, mental illness is a very isolating thing, and it separates you from community. And one of the big things that we need to do to help people recover well is to reintegrate them with community. So that's a huge piece of what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Asante. I mean, I don't know when you sleep. You have a young family, and I just want to give you, as the Americans would say, I would give you flowers, because you are a young man yourself. You've been on the show before. You've talked about your own journey, and so I really commend you. And John, you have been with Victoria, and now with the rest of the team, you're trying to train us. You've put together, you and Victoria have worked on this amazing workshop for families. And so if you can tell us just a little bit about the workshops and how people can even, yes, a round of applause for John, and how they can, even, because I know it's for companies as well as, what you're going to be doing. So tell us, John, you're on the hot seat now.
Yeah, so one of the initiatives that came out of the Family Advisory Council was to provide some education and support for caregivers, because we are caregivers with lived experience. And so, and I guess Victoria and I have taken the lead on it, but it's certainly come out of the collective wisdom of the Family Advisory Council. So what we have done is put together this webinar, which can be anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. We can do it in different parts in modular form. And it is focused on caregivers, parental caregivers who have young adults who have mental health challenges. And what we're doing is providing a number of strategies and tips and techniques and lots of conversation and lots of insight around what we've learned. As you could hear in the panel today, many of us have said, I wish I had known then what I now know, what I now know. Well, how can we speed that up? How can we speed that up? And so what we've done is put this together, and we have been focusing on two audiences. One, the audience of employees within companies, and the other audience is with within private schools, and Martha's been involved with that as well. And so we just got going this fall to amazing feedback, and so we're going to be ramping it up next year for sure. We put together a workbook to go with it, and we also, what's in the plans to do, actually call it a podcast, but a series of audio, 25-minute audio portions where we would talk about the various topics we have in the webinar, which is engaging your young adult, caring for yourself, managing family dynamics, managing your village, and also dealing with the clinical area. So those are the 5 topics that we deal with in the webinar. And so we're going to expand that and to make it more scalable. So let's, instead of just having a dozen people on a webinar, let's make it available to thousands of people whenever they want to get a hold of some of the insights. And so that's in the works too. So that's and that's been a very, very successful launch this past fall.
Busy. And I'm saying anybody who has an interest in young people and want to get involved, let us know. And George, you are also dealing with the face mask. I should have brought my face mask with me. I don't know if anybody has their face mask, but Stella's Place has this amazing face mask that we have and we're selling. And we're going to be at a Christmas, I don't want to say bazaar would be the word we would use in the Caribbean.
Yeah, it's it's a bit of a pop-up in Leslieville. It's called Leslieville Christmas Market. It's going to be on December 18th and 19th. And I don't have the exact address ready with it, but I can get that for later and bring it up for sure. And the masks were, actually John was one of John's brainchilds, but we got it made quite quickly, and we've been using it for marketing purposes, for things like including in gift bags for volunteer activities that we've had and other fundraising activities. So and we did kind of a fun one where we're involved with Choice Realty and their volunteer group, and John and Dagmar and I put together a little marketing contest. So one of the taglines that they came up with was around the masks that we're looking to see if we can market them at the Christmas market, is give the gift of mental health, right? And the idea is that by donating a certain amount, you get either a 1, 2, or 3 or 4 pack of masks, and those make great stocking stuffers and that kind of thing. So
they're so great. You can wear them with your glasses, and after, if you really adjust it well, it doesn't fog up your glasses. So that's what I love, and it covers the whole chin. So I love the Stella's Place mask.
They're nicely designed. They've got the Stella's logo on them. They were designed. 2 of them were designed by a local designer, Haley Elsesser. And 2 of them were designed by our very own Alex Sawatsky, who does a lot of the Stella's Place branding and marketing and graphic design. Oh, thank you, Dagmar.
Dagmar is on the money. Listen, we could not be who we are without Dagmar.
That's for sure.
Is the, I think, I don't know, she's the captain of the ship. I don't even know what to call Dagmar. She was, yes, we love you, Dagmar.
Yeah,
we love you.
Big hearts.
And Martha, I know your event is gone, but I know you're doing it again next year. You do this golfing, and I wish I was into golfing. But tell us about the event that you're so passionate about when you raise funds for Stella's Place.
Actually, so we do, my family and I do 2 events annually. I'll talk about the first one. First, it was actually Dagmar who invited us to asked if we wanted to be run or jog at the Yorkville. It was then called the Yorkville Charity Run or whatever it was called. Now it's a Constantine. And so I said, yeah, we'd be happy to, and, fundraise for Stella's Place. And so this was in 2017, I believe, 18. Regardless, it doesn't matter what year we started, but, and it just so happened that a lot of my family and friends expressed interest. So we formed a team. And then when the pandemic hit and the run wasn't actually going to be happening live, but it was going to be virtual, instead of joining that, our team of family and friends, we decided to take it virtually and do our own activity challenge. And so it was more inclusive that way. So, people could run, or they could actually just do any activity that they wanted to. One example is, it was my mother actually, and her great idea that her activity was going to read books on mental health. And she asked for people to support her in doing this. And so that was great. So that's one, we call it now the activity challenge, and that happens in August every year. And then in September, this past September, it was our third annual golf tournament. And yeah, we just get as many sponsors as we can, participants. This year we had 160 participants. And
Wow.
yeah, they go out and play
I'm
around
so
of
mad I had to miss
golf.
it. Oh,
And yeah, it is a great, both events are very great and lovely. And just the people interact and really, get to know about Stella's place. I get it gives them an opportunity to speak about mental health themselves. We've heard a lot of the participants, it's a group of guys that go out, 4 guys playing golf, and then they end up talking about their kids or their family members or their own mental health. And so it's not only about the fundraising, but just the community fundraising and awareness raising, everything.
and I think it creates an environment for the ease of talk,
Yeah.
where you're chatting around and you don't feel the stigma, and it's an easy place to have a conversation. So I love it about that. And Miss Laurie, you're part of that, the team that is really going after and looking for sponsors for the film festival. We had our first youth mental health film festival. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I wasn't involved so much with the film fest, but oops, I lost you.
But we still have you. I can still hear
I'm
you.
more involved right now in getting sponsors for our next year
Right.
film fest, and trying to make our film fest part of the TIFF event. Not with their, right now we're not doing with their prime movies, but we're looking to do different coordinations with them about doing a event where it is mental health films for young adults, caregivers. It will be touching on many different topics. Right now, we're speaking to one of the banks about being involved on a long-term basis. And I'm really thrilled because I believe that our institutions and our banks and our big corporations have a responsibility to be
Yes.
involved. And they are lacking in that at this particular point in time. And for places like Stella's place, where we are totally reliant on outside funding, we need them. And we're going to be coming for them, is all I can say.
It's Giving Tuesday tomorrow, and
The
that
one
was the
thing,
perfect
the one,
segue, Lori. Go ahead.
the, the one thing that people should know about parents
Mm.
or caregivers that have been involved with young adults, we are not afraid at a certain point in time to ask all of the questions, to fight for what we believe in. And this group of people fights for what we believe in, and we will get our sponsors that we need to get. We will be on platforms demanding change. And we are just thrilled to be involved with people like Asante that want us to help out.
It is so important. And when I look at the team and the fight, and despite all that they're dealing with in their own personal lives, they're volunteering their time. Nobody is paid. And we know that the system does not have the capacity currently to handle what is currently there. And I could only imagine, Asante and your team, like what you're faced with on a daily basis. And um, when you look at, and I say to people, I deal with places of integrity, for those who know me, and there are a very few charities I would say that I would be endorsing, and this is one of them. And I would say tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, and many people are coming for your money. But if you can give us money, give us resources. We're expanding. The building is going. We're looking for volunteers for our family advisory council. We're looking for peer support. Um, and see, you're getting your flowers, Asante. Asante, you rock. Yes, he does, and he's rocking. He's rocking the whole look too. He seems. The beautiful thing with Asante is he comes in with this calm manner, and we were on this. I'm going to out you here. We were on this committee the other day for the design of the new building. And when Asante came in the room and they asked a question, these jewels just started coming out of his mouth. And everybody was like, whoa, what just happened? What just happened when Asante opened his mouth and came into the room? He was just giving us such understanding and such leaning. And I think that's one of the things that makes it different. And Asante, I'm going to ask you to, if you can really sum it up, you've been dealing with so many communities, so many families, a part of Stella's Place. Why do you believe that people should give to Stella's Place? Putting you on the spot, my dear. I know I didn't. I should have prepared you for that question. I'm so
No,
sorry.
hey, that's all good, man. I live for this. Um, you know, we say our children are the future, right? So we have to protect them. And one of the ways that we protect them is protecting their health, right? So when you're giving to Stella's Place, you're giving to young people and you're giving to their health and you're really giving to the future of our society. We can't allow these young people to fall through the cracks. We can't. We have to do everything possible to keep as many of our young people healthy, especially as, I mean, obviously we're facing so many new challenges in our society, in all of our societies. It's really important that we make sure we take care of the future generations because without them, there's no us.
Yeah.
Well said,
Yeah.
Asante. And I would say now I'm going to go to the whole team I'm going to go around the corner as we start winding down the conversation. We know we can talk all day because we're so passionate about it. And so, George, any last words you can say? Anything you want to say? This is your time. Um,
Yeah, I guess I'm in a lot of ways certainly very grateful for finding this group to work with and doing our work to help support Stella's Place. As you mentioned, good care takes real money. So part of our role is to try to fundraise, and the other part is we've all expressed that if I only knew then what I know now, and we want to share that. We want to advocate for mental health in general, for youth mental health, young adult mental health, and we want to help caregivers learn the things they need to know. Unfortunately, so that are not given to you by the professionals, as we mentioned. So, and yes, I could go on for a very long time because I'm quite passionate about all of these things. And there's and then we haven't even touched on all of the other aspects that John touches on in Victoria, self-care and family dynamics, and all those are entire multi-week webinars on their own and podcasts, right? There's so much to go, stuff, right? Anyway.
And definitely, George, you said it so rightly. And actually, what I'm going to be launching in 2022 is the Minding Our Mind series and Caring for Caregivers series as a podcast. So, just building on that right now because I think it's so important and, involving Stella's Place and other organizations like yourself in this because it is so needed. And if we don't care for ourselves, we'll be no good to anyone. Um,
Well, and one of the research pieces that I've been reading more and more about is the success of somebody's mental health journey is very much based on the support network that they have.
Absolutely.
And family is a huge part of that. So
Yeah.
it's so important.
John?
I can't think of a greater calling than to help a young adult become fully functional and navigate their life and stand up to be compassionate, moral human beings. I can't think of a greater challenge. And the fact that they may have a little bit of a brain disease, in some cases a big brain disease, to overcome. Inherent in that are tremendous gifts as well. Some of the great game changers in our society actually had mental health conditions, whether they were diagnosed or not, whether it was in music or politics or business, because they do not see the world the way other people see it. Let them breathe that into the world around them and help change the world, because they're bringing gifts that they have, and that may be compensating for mental health. So I can't think of a greater challenge than to liberate that. And Stella's Place is one of the places that does that. I'm so proud to be part of it, and with the colleagues that you have seen tonight. Can't be prouder.
Thank you so much, John. And Dagmar put in here, our matching gift donors this year are Nora and Paul Ulenhe and family. Hopefully I said that right, Dagmar. Hopefully I said it right. And so they're matching gifts this year. So thank you so much to them and to all who've been giving to Stella's Place. And Lori, what are your last, I wouldn't say last words, but what do you want to say as you wrap up?
Okay, well, I would say for Giving Tuesday. The reason why I think that Stella's Place is a great organization is that I don't think that we really have talked too much about how Stella's Place is completely different, and that not just that it offers services for free, but the one thing that is terribly lacking in mental health is a program that is specifically for young adults. That's what this program is. It is based on peers. It's based on real life experiences. And when I first came to Stella's Place, my desire was that I wanted to start my own organization. This would be what I would have opened. And so I think that says everything that I can say about Stella's Place. I believe in it entirely. And I am so proud to be a part of it and to be a part of the members with this team who are dedicated and we love what we do. It's just that simple.
I'm trying not to cry here. Stop it, Lori. You're gonna make me cry before I'm almost there now. Martha?
I'm gonna agree with everything that everybody has said. Lori, bang on. I think it's the difference of Stella's Place. Stella's Place is different from anything that I've encountered out there with my daughter, and that's what makes it the place for young adults. Is it's a complete wellness journey that they have control over. It's not somebody telling them what to do. It's a place that has so many different layers and levels, and they can enter at wherever they see fit for themselves, not somebody telling them where they fit. And I think that's important because young adults, they're intelligent and they need to, if they don't already, they're learning how to navigate their lives, and that's what's important. That's going to make them successful in living complete lives. So I think that's it with Stella's Place. It's everyone at Stella's Place and every program meets the young adults where they are, and that's the number one thing that they need, along with the support that is available for them. So that's why I'm passionate about Stella's Place.
And you segued right into it, Martha, because the young people who are there are very much involved in everything. Because even when we spoke about the design project and with the expansion of Stella's Place, they're in the design process of the expansion. They're part of designing programs. They're part of the designing the peer supports. Their voice is so intricate. And tonight I really want to shout out Donna Green, the brainchild, the architect of Stella's Place, and Stella. And they've, both been here, and, what they and their family, as well as their loved ones, have gone and sacrificed to put Stella's Place out front to make sure that young people have another place that they can go to for alternative care, that they feel like human beings and they don't feel stigmatized, that they don't feel like, that they don't belong and they are judged. And so I want to thank the whole team. You guys have met my extended family here tonight. Dagmar says, thank you all for your passion, for your commitment for young adults and mental health. And Andrea Boea says, such a great conversation, so amazing. And Andrea is a psychotherapist. That's such an empowering organization for exists for young people and families. And, if anyone has any questions, now is your time to ask one last question before we wrap up. And I really want to thank John, Martha, Lori, George, and Asante for being so transparent and for sharing your stories. It's so personal to share these stories. And people don't understand, again, with the whole privacy and with the stigma that, caregivers are have to be protective of their families, have to be protected of their loved ones. Sometimes, you have to get your loved ones' permission to share their story because, they may be going for a job and just because they see something, they may say, oh, because this one, they're stigmatized, but they're not stigmatized with anything else. So, I really encourage you. I know the team really encourages you tonight to break the stigma, to stop the judgment, to recognize that everybody's just going through a different phase of their life and their journey. And if we learned anything through this pandemic, that our mental health is our health, our brain is our mind is our brain. And thank everybody for being such a part of this great conversation tonight. And you can watch the repeat. If you missed it all, you can go to YouTube at the Victory Speaks channel. Subscribe to that channel if you can. Um, and sharing is caring. And I really tell you to share, not because I'm building listenership, but it's because of equipping people with the information. That's why we do the show. This is why I do the show. This is why I take the time and I volunteer my time to do the show every Monday and Wednesday. And we're going to be building as we go into 2022. And also, if you're on Facebook, you're not on YouTube, you can check it out on Victory Speak 77. The podcast is available on anywhere you listen to your podcast, where I have the encouraging messages. And remember, everybody needs your smile. Your day can change somebody's day with a smile, with reaching out, even through your mask, your smile. If I did this, you would tell if my smile, because my cheeks would puff up. Your body has a different demeanor when we smile. So I encourage everybody, to have that conversation. Remember, love is in the details. And, we're coming up to Christmas. And so let's be mindful of everybody's heart. Give the gift of love this Christmas. Give the gift of care. Think of caregivers. And I know this month is also when we look at, gender-based violence. And there's a lot of that happening this month. So I want everybody to be mindful of this. And the 16 days of activism is happening right now. So my friends, for all of you Victory listeners who have tuned in tonight, taken the time, I just want to encourage you. And you know what? Giving Tuesday's tomorrow. And if you choose, I encourage you to give to Stella's Place or anywhere else you want to give to. But Stella's Place is a good place to give to. It's for you, the mental health and the family caregivers that you have met tonight. And remember to give yourselves grace, to hug yourself, to have something warm. Enjoy, find something to be grateful for today. This is Nicole. Let your victory speak. And remember to love on someone else today. And so I'm bringing back my friends. We're going to say goodbye tonight. I'm going to play that clip one more time from Stella's Place so you get it. This is us at Stella's Place.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nicole.
You're welcome. And we're going to roll the clip. Don't go anywhere, folks.
I'm so passionate about Stella's Place because it is everything that I needed when I was a young person.
The programming here, they're actually designed for them instead of prescribed to them.
My story is like so many other stories. And that's why Stella's Place is something that I'm so passionate about, because it's a place that is not just my place, but it's a place for everyone.